go to messages on Instagram on the computer.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. My TV's in the way. I don't know. I'm just leaving it alone. I got it bootleg here. But you can hear me okay? Because I got my
Yeah,
speaker back a little bit.
yeah, it's good. It's good.
Need to
I just
full-
want to make sure that I can. Awesome.
I'm so
We're
nervous.
we're good to go.
Oh, hold on 1 second. Can you hear me? I'm sorry. I was
I
messing with
can.
the thing. Okay, you can hear me. Okay, good. I'm excited. So when you had sent me a list of questions a while back,
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to go over them all, but I pretty much knew about all of them. But the only thing I don't know about is churches. Like I never
Okay.
like churches in the city. Like I don't really know about them. I just try to leave them alone. But I get what you were saying. Like when I started, looking at your stories and stuff like that, how you were showing like, okay, how this church is massive and like beautiful, and then it'll be right next to a vacant building or something like
Yeah.
that. It's like, why won't you, if everybody's crowdfunding the church, why wouldn't you do something with their community, especially directly, behind it? So I get that, but I just never really paid attention to it in the city of Detroit.
Okay. So what's funny is I forgot I created a list of questions for you, and I was on my phone and I was looking for questions, and then I
Mm-hmm.
found it. So I actually deleted that question, so that's not on here anymore.
Okay, cool.
And
Yeah, I don't know.
also,
Like, yep, sorry.
I
How did,
deleted the question about commercial property as well.
okay, cool.
So as I've followed your stories, I've learned more and better questions to ask you as well.
Oh my gosh, no, I'm not gonna. No, I'm just joking. I'll just do my best. Um, yeah, I'll do my best. Is it okay if we record this?
Yeah, that's fine. Whatever you want to do.
Record. Okay. Do you know how to edit or not really?
I have a guy that does it now. At first, I used to just do it myself, and I was like, I
Mhm.
don't have time to do that stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a lot.
so I
Yeah,
have
I
a
just
guy. He does that.
mess up.
He does the intro. He does all that stuff.
Okay, cool. That's good. Yeah. Just
Yeah.
in case I mess up or drink or something like that, I'm like, oh my gosh. Because with bigger pockets, they edited a lot. They edited a lot. And then like we'll be talking and I could be like, oh shoot, okay, hold on, let's redo that. Let's redo it. And it's like, okay, don't worry about it. Because I felt like it was like I felt more easier because I knew like, okay, if something messed up, I could just redo it. But I know I know it's really hard to do, but you said you got a guy, so that's good. But I'm like, I'm gonna still try to be, when I decided to do this, I'm like, let me be more on point because I just don't want to have him editing so much stuff out. So
Okay.
that's good. And then I had to pop a Motrin 800 this morning because my tooth, so my filling came out. So I have a root canal schedule, but I like put it off because my birthday is Monday or tomorrow. And I'm like,
Happy
I'm
birthday.
getting some deals and stuff. Thank you. So I put it off. So I've been in pain. So I'm like, let me just pop a Motrin 800. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Just because it's like really bad, but it's doing better now.
It's cool. My birthday is in like a week from Tuesday.
Leo?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Oh
cool
my
learning
God.
about so many people are Leos.
Yes, Barack. I was just telling my daughter like why Leos are the best people in the world, like Barack Obama, Whitney Houston, and then we kind of got off the subject because she was telling me why Sagittarius are the best because LeBron James. So I'm like, oh my gosh, no, I got to find out everybody who birthday in August now so I can prove to her why Leos are the best.
Yeah. I think they're the best. That's funny.
So let me know when you're ready to start and how the flow is gonna go or how's it.
We'll kick it off. But it's so funny. I work with a black business owner, super successful family in Watts, and she's a Leo. I used to work for this old Jewish dude who was like worth like $250 million. He was a Leo. And
Wow.
his son also was a Leo as well. So there's a lot of power in that
Yeah.
line.
Yeah, that's what I think, definitely. I think it's the
Yeah.
power situation and just the attitude and the go-getter mentality.
Yep,
So that's good
100%.
to know. What you got planned for your birthday?
Well, it's actually going to be punted to my wife's birthday. Her birthday's in September, and so
Oh,
we're
okay.
gonna go to Cabo for her and me.
Oh, just do it
Um,
together.
yeah, so we'll be out there for like 4 or 5 days.
Oh,
I
that's
don't take too many vacations, but we'll take this one. It'll be
right.
fun.
Me neither. When is it? September what?
September like 15th through the 19th.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my son's September 2nd. That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's a
yeah.
Virgo.
Her birthday's September 16th, and she's definitely a Virgo.
Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, I get it. So that's amazing. So you out in California, huh?
Yeah. Yep.
Rancho Cucamonga?
Yeah. How'd you
Oh,
know?
I think I saw it somewhere. It's so funny.
Yeah.
On my personal Instagram, me and my kids, we drove. We go every year. We do a family vacation in February, and we've been going to Vegas and then driving to California, right? So
Mhm.
we had to use the bathroom, and of course, we had to stop at Rancho Cucamonga. It was a Taco Bell, and I like posted a photo, beautiful. Like all you see is mountains, and then we were there in February, and this was like everybody was saying it was snowing pretty much, and they were saying like these mountains never have snow on them because it was snowing. They had snow, so I took a photo and I'm like, yeah, everybody we're in Rancho Cucamonga, where's Day at? And it was my kids, they really didn't understand like, about Rancho Cucamonga, but I'm like, yeah, so I gotta find that photo and post it on my business Instagram. But it's just crazy. I'm like, oh man, Todd is in Rancho Cucamonga. I could have stopped by and saw him.
That's the funniest part is like there's actually a lot of black people that live in Rancho, and I think it's because of the Friday movie.
Yeah.
Like,
You got to, man. It's just you got to. Every time I drive through California, I got to stop there, even if it's just a rest stop,
yeah,
just for the
that's
movie.
funny. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So yeah, how do you like it out there?
um, I like it, but I also like other areas of the country that because the thing about California is it's tough to do business in California.
Oh yeah, that's
Um,
what I said.
yeah, because everything is so expensive out here. So that's why you see me doing a lot of stuff outside of the state
Yeah,
and bringing in people who are outside of the state because it's just, I mean, the weather's amazing. It's
yeah.
always like a cool 70, 80, never too hot, never too cold. So that's great. It's a pretty affordable. It's not super expensive. I mean, as affordable as you can get in California. It's
Okay.
just in order to really make money as an entrepreneur, it's tough. It's really tough. Like you can't just go and say, "Oh, I want to open this business in this storefront," because a storefront's going to cost you a ton
Yeah,
of money.
yeah,
It's not affordable. It's not easy to get into.
yeah. I can
Um,
imagine.
yeah. So pros
Yeah,
and cons.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you got to figure out what you want.
Yeah, but like you look at places in like Atlanta, and it's like it's wide out open opportunity. Philadelphia, wide open opportunity. Baltimore, Detroit. Like
Yes, definitely.
so.
Yeah. And that's what I was thinking. Like, why? Like, I mean, I feel like even though it's really not as expensive as California, but Detroit definitely has some things that's like, okay, this is ridiculous. Like our car insurance, for example. Like my car insurance is like $350 a month, and like I have good credit. I'm over 25, never had an accident. I have a 2-car garage. Like, why am I paying so much, for because yeah, so that's the drawback from the city. Like our insurance rates is sky high. My daughter, she just got her permit. She's 15. She'll be driving on her 16th birthday. And they're talking about my insurance is gonna go up by $300. So I'll be paying like $600 for just because she has her license. I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm going to Vegas.
Vegas is a good area. I like Vegas.
I'm going there at the end of the month, and I'm like, I'm gonna check out some houses, definitely.
Yeah, it's pretty affordable. You can buy something for a good price, and there's so much to do there. I have
Yeah,
a friend. He lived in Vegas, so he lived in Vegas. He bought a house in Vegas, huge, not huge, but it was a nice size home.
yeah,
Always could go to the strip, go to all the restaurants, go to all the shows, all the hotels. Like he loved it. The only reason why he moved back to California is because I think his job moved him back. But otherwise, he was like, I could have stayed in Vegas forever.
yeah,
I
yeah.
love Vegas.
I love Vegas. That's my second home. I want a home. That's one of my goals. I want to have a home there. It was
Mhm.
always because I'm always having these ideas, like entrepreneur ideas, like ways to make money, and I wanted to get a condo out there. I was just looking at all type of condos and just Airbnb it. And then that way, even if it was just for me, I go like 4 times a year. I'm like, even if it's just me saving the hotel fee, that would probably be worth the
Yeah.
mortgage. On top of that, I can do like a massive Airbnb. But I heard the laws got really, really strict out there.
Hmm.
So about Airbnb, and I know there's people doing it, but they're getting fined a lot. So
Oh
a couple
wow.
people from Vegas reached out to me about that. So it's still worth doing. It's just more research involved, but maybe more so just have it rented out as rental property. And that way, when I retire or whenever I go out there, I'll have a place to go.
Right. Or, that's my goal. Is so funny. I always talk to like Rashawn about this, about house hacking and
Oh
how
yeah,
house hacking can allow you to live for free. But that doesn't mean you have to live there all the time. Like maybe I'm only here in December. Maybe I'm
Yes.
only
Oh my
here in
God.
this month. So
I could tell you, it's so funny you said that. Literally, just 2 weeks ago, I found a fourplex in Vegas for 400,000. I'm like, I'm about to house hack this, but I'm like, I can't physically move there. Like, I got 4 more years, and then I'm gonna be house hacking every year. That's what I feel like I'm gonna do. My son, he just started high school, so once he graduated, I already told him, like, you guys can go to college, and I feel like I'm gonna definitely start in Vegas, and I'm gonna house hack every single
I
year.
like
It's
it.
the hardest thing. But I'm like, I was literally for a second here trying to figure out how can I house hack this fourplex in Vegas and still keep my life in Michigan for my kids. Like, well, I can go out there 2 weeks and have the kids out there every weekend. We can go out there just to make it where it's not, illegal. I'm not crossing the line. I'm like, but I can change my address. I'll get cheaper insurance, everything, but I still got to come to Michigan for the kids. So I'm like, dang, I'm
Yeah.
like, well, let me just be back. But I mean, it was like I said, it was fourplex. It was 400,000. It was downtown though. But the other 3 units were rented out at like 900 a month or something, and it was brand new construction. Like they
Wow.
the whole thing. Yeah, I was talking to some guys out in Vegas that's trying to invest here. He was like, I'll look into it for you, but as of right now, it's off the market. But when I'm going down there on the 27th. I'm definitely looking for that. I mean, I'm like, that is awesome. Even if I had to
Yeah.
pay somebody to stay there, for a year in one unit as me, like
Yeah.
I really want to do it. So that's
Yeah.
crazy that you said that. But yeah, just because I have the kids right now and they're in their senior year, it's like, I mean, their high school years, it's like I'm stuck in Michigan. And I always will be here. All my properties are here. I love Michigan, but I want to build wealth in other places. And I feel like that's the easiest, quickest, and cheapest way to do it. And obviously there's other ways, but I think that's how I'll get into it,
Yeah.
getting out into different cities and states. So that is crazy that you said that. Great mindset.
Cool. So I'm gonna kick it off, and we'll um, talk more as we go through this.
All right, sounds good. Let's get it
So
started.
this is the Thai Capital Millionaire Podcast. This is episode number 115. My name is Charles Oglesby, also known as Thai Millionaire, founder and the director of the Thai Capital Investment Club, also the founder of Thai Acquisitions. We're doing great things. Hey, I'm also the founder of Thai Capital Cuts, so we should be rolling out the barbershop on this Monday. Great things are happening for us. Great things are happening for the entire just community of Black wealth builders in America. So thank you all for tuning in. The purpose of this podcast, as you know, is to share the stories of successful African-American business owners and investors so that people can hear the stories of successful examples, because they do exist. Everybody has overcome the things you think are holding you back. This is episode number 115 with at Detroit_investor, Ashely Hamilton. She inspired so many people with her story on the Bigger Pockets podcast. And what's so interesting is that the same reason why people said that she inspired her on Bigger Pockets is the reason why we created this podcast in the very first place. We wanted people to hear a story about somebody who came from circumstances that most of us come from, that also transcended those circumstances and is now doing great things, walking into new spaces, meeting Jay Morrison, doing all kind of really cool stuff. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here, and I cannot wait to share knowledge and my experiences with the masses. And thank you for saying at Detroit_investor, because as you know, on my Bigger Pockets podcast, I did not have a business Instagram. I was really low key, so I missed out on a lot of that, where people can find me at. And so now I have people reaching out over like 10 different platforms, but really the Instagram is where I would really like everybody to follow me at, reach out to me, and I get to answer way more questions there. So it is at Detroit_investor. Thank you.
The cool thing about it is you were doing all this stuff low key. You weren't like posting on the gram. You were just acquiring home after home after home after home. When I saw that you popped up, first, I always listen to every African-American investor on the Bigger Pockets podcast. But then when I saw you're in Detroit, I was like, it just makes sense. So we've been investing in Detroit for about 2 years. We own a good handful of doors. I think we'll be at 10 doors this upcoming week. But people called us crazy. They're like, why would you invest in Detroit? You see what's on the news, blah, blah, blah. What gave you the inspiration and the motivation to buy in Detroit despite the news?
Right. So Honestly, I have to go back to my favorite quotes is be fearful when others are greedy and be greedy when others are fearful. So, and I was really, really young when I bought my first property. I was 23 years old, never had any inspiration. So I never really had anybody to look up to for inspiration to see how to do it. But I also never had anybody who did it. So I couldn't see their failures and say, well, don't do it. So I just never been around real estate, but I knew I wanted to be financially free for my kids. And it just made the most sense. I didn't have a lot of money. I was a waitress. So I was making like 20 grand a year. And my first property that I bought, well, the first goal was to eliminate paying rent. I was paying $700 a month in rent. So I could not build wealth if I'm paying $700 in rent. That's cheaper than a mortgage. So I found a house that was about 4 blocks over from where I was renting for $6,300. It was a ranch. It was close to 8 Mile. Everybody always asks me, Ashley, why you invest close to 8 Mile? Well, back in Detroit, that was just the best neighborhood. It's 8 Mile, for those who don't know, it's like the baseline of the city. So it separates Detroit from the suburbs. So most people, just me being, African American and not having a lot of money, I still wanted my kids to be able to enjoy the liberty of having suburban schools and education, if our school system failed us. So that's why I wanted to be close to 8 Mile. It's close to shopping, freeways, and all that stuff. So I found a property for $6,300. I knew I didn't have it right then, but I knew that was something that I can afford. Trying to get a mortgage to get out of the city was just unheard of because I didn't really have good credit. I didn't have no credit and I didn't have any income. So nobody would give me a mortgage. And I just didn't have anybody, I guess, to look up to. Like now I feel like even if I was in that situation now, just listening to people like you, watching your stories, Jay Morrison, people that's out there actually teaching us, I feel like I could have done better and stuff like that. But back then we didn't have that. This was 2009. Right. So I just basically was being greedy when others were fearful.
There's a lot of value packed into that initial statement, because it's interesting. I had to go to a Home Depot once I was out there. And so you're driving, and it's literally as soon as you cross 8 Mile, the world changes.
Yes.
As soon as you cross it, it's like night and day.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting. So when I heard you say that, I was like, that's so true. It's like 8 miles the divider.
8 Mile, yeah, definitely.
And then also you said something about like schools failing, which is actually something that happens in Detroit. Have been schools that have just ceased to exist.
Yeah, they did fail. Around that time, it was still a lot, but in 2009. But now I believe it's probably like 2 or 3 high schools in Detroit alone, and maybe a handful of schools. Everything is charter schools in Detroit. Mm-hmm. Hopefully they bring it back, but they blame it on Kwame. That's all I got to say. Even though I don't, they blame it on Kwame. So yeah.
The cool thing about your story, I listened to your podcast on Bigger Pockets a few times, and this is something my mom always talks about. She's like, you eliminate a bill, but then you still pay the bill. So can you talk about how, man, there's just so much value in your story. I think it really can help a lot of people. But can you talk about how that helped you? Because you got rid of your rent, but you still paid the rent.
Right, absolutely. So basically, and like I said, I don't know where I got all this stuff from, honestly. I guess for just that Leo mindset. No offense to the other signs, but me and Todd are Leos. But I don't know, like I said, all this stuff that I'm reading about in books now, it just was embedded in my mind. Like I said, I really don't know where I got it from. I didn't have any inspiration, but that was the goal. So I knew early on I had to eliminate the biggest expense, which was my rent. But I also knew that just because I was not spending the $700 a month in rent, that I still couldn't spend it and just live freely because I would still be stuck in the same situation. So that was simply the biggest and best way that I was able to expand my portfolio, is just putting them. And then you still want to reward yourself somehow. So even though I wasn't spending the $700 in rent, I didn't save the complete $700, but a good $600, $550 went into my savings account every month, because I knew that following year I would get another tax return and I can just build and add with it. To me, that's the single most powerful tool that we can give ourselves, and people who don't have family or 401ks, stuff to look for is stop. If you're eliminating student loan debt, that's the biggest thing. You get so used to paying student loan debt, and once you're finished, you're like, I'm free, party, Vegas, everywhere. But just do live how most people won't, so you can live how most people don't. And just try it for 1 year and see how much money you can save. Like I told my best friend, he was trying to get out. He wants to move to Las Vegas, and he was really struggling. And I'm like, listen, get another job that if you could just make $4 more an hour, $4 more an hour, whether it's get another job or do a side hustle, you could have $9,000 saved up by the end of the year. As long as you don't spend it, all you have to do is work 4 extra hours a week. Make $4 extra an hour. So just like I said, so you just find different strategies and different ways to increase your wealth, but don't spend it right away. Try to save it and just live how most people don't, so you can live how most people won't, just for a year and see how much you'll save.
The great thing about both of your quotes is they're contrarianist quotes, meaning that you kind of go against what people are doing. Mm-hmm. And I've found that is just the way that things work if you want to truly be successful and separate from the masses. Yeah. So it's like you said, be fearful when they're greedy when they're fearful. That's contrarianism. And then also live like no one else so later you can live like no one else is contrarianism. And I've also found that a lot of times buying what people hate and talk about and make fun of is how you acquire a bunch of properties. I always tell people, like, we own 10 doors and you own 10 doors and you probably own more than 10 doors. You're doing so many crazy things right now. But you don't get there competing in red oceans. You get there by finding that blue ocean, that wide open opportunity where you could just gobble it up. The reason why I got inspired to go to Detroit is I was listening to a few different things, maybe the Tulsa Real Estate Podcast at one point in time. And there's this guy got on there and he's like, yeah, I own 12 homes in Detroit. I'm doing this and doing that. And then like I heard somebody else say he owns like a bunch of doors in Detroit. And I was like, hold up, like we're just buying a bunch of doors in Detroit. Like you don't do something that doesn't work 12 times.
Right.
You do it once, you're like, nah, I'm good on that. Like right. I gotta go.
Yeah.
But it's like it works. And it's so crazy. Like, I'll never forget on the podcast, somebody made the point of Detroit not being a good investment. And you're like, I paid $20,000 for this. I make $900 a month. Like, how is that not a good investment? Like, how's that not a good property? That makes no sense.
Yeah, it's crazy. Sorry.
To go back to the beginning, I want to ask you why real estate. I didn't really get a chance to ask you the fundamental questions, but why real estate? What drove you to property?
Right. So just the opportunity, it was so cheap. Back in 2009, properties were selling for $3,000 or $4,000. That was not a lot of work and rehab involved in it. And it was just a vehicle to provide. Well, at that point, my goal was to eliminate my biggest expense and create multiple streams of income. That was the biggest thing. So real estate was the thing that was going to get me there quickest. And it was going to let me spend a lot of more time with my kids. It was really, honestly, that's really why I did everything, my kids, because I knew I wanted to be there with them every single day and not be absent and just, show them what I didn't have, show them a good example. So that was really why. And I was trying to figure out ways to eliminate, get multiple streams of income, but also be there with my kids. So when I bought my first house, my plan was just to buy houses and rent them out and rehab them and, keep it going. But the first real estate agent that sold my house, she was like, you should be a real estate agent too. You should do what I do. And she got me into that. And I went to school and I got my real estate license. This was back in 2010. So that was another stream of income that provided financial freedom. And I still was able to spend time with my kids and things like that. So that was the biggest way. The biggest takeaway I can say from it was spending more time with my kids, and real estate was more passive. It could be, definitely.
After you eliminated your biggest expense, which was your rent, then what did you do? Like, how did the world open up for you?
Yeah, it really didn't. See, that's the thing. You meeting me and knowing me back then, you would not have known I was a homeowner. I could say the only thing that I didn't do was I went down from working 4 days a week to 3 days a week. So I eliminated 1 day of work, but I still wore the same clothes. I didn't have a new wardrobe. I still drove the same car. I didn't do granite countertops in my house or anything like that. My house was just basic necessities, what we needed. My kids still, everything was still the same. And that the reason why, because even though I had eliminated that expense, I still was stacking. I was still saving the money, and I was just still basically, this was my way of living like most people, won't. So nothing really changed except for maybe just working 1 day less a week.
Okay. Yeah. So can we talk about your very first deal? What did that look like?
Yep. So my very first deal was my primary residence, was the property that I told you about. I paid $6,300 for it, and when I moved in the house, it was August. Honestly, I didn't even have enough money to put the furnace in there. So I moved. I used my tax return and a little money that I could save, which was only like $1,000 for closing costs. And basically, I moved in a property like just it was not even complete. Didn't have a furnace in there, but I had to get in there. It was summer, so I had a couple months before I had to get the furnace. And yeah, I think I spent about $3,000 getting the property put back together. So altogether, I invested like $9,000 into the property, and I stayed there for 4 years. I never renovated the house. All of my properties that I were buying after that looked better than mine. But yeah, and I still own that house today. And the funny thing about it is I paid $6,300 for it, and that house rents out today for $9,300 a year. Yeah,
Wow.
so I make more in 1 year in rental income than I paid for the house. Yeah, but I
Wow.
still own it today. That's my baby.
Um, man, it gets really cold in Detroit in the winter. Very cold. So my question is, what did that rehab look like that you spent 3,000 on? And
Yes.
then
Mhm.
when you did put the furnace in, how much did the furnace cost you?
Yeah. So the renovation literally was just paint. So I hired a painting company. They charged me about $1,200, some guys, and they ripped me off. So they painted the house, but they were supposed to come back and do all the trim, like all the trim white and clean up the lines and stuff like that. And once I paid them, they never even showed back up. So I honestly moved in the house with all my walls painted, but my trim was like not evenly cut. It was not painted correctly. So that was just like $1,200. The plumbing needed to be replaced, and that was a little more expensive, and I believe that was about $1,500, and then I just threw some carpet in there. So even at that price of $6,300, it was not really a lot of renovation. Someone has sold the plumbing, someone has sold the furnace, and it needed to just be painted, just to be freshened up, and some new carpet. And then everything else was like doorknobs and stuff that I kind of did myself, but that was pretty much it. And then the furnace, I got down the line. I probably only paid, well, my electrician, he had a furnace, I guess, from another house, and he did the furnace for $1,200 that was installed. But
What's
that
crazy?
was
What's crazy about that stuff is even the furnace is pretty affordable because I've been charged like $3,000 for a furnace
wow,
with the
yeah.
ductwork.
Yeah, so I've been paying about 1,500 to about 12 to 1,500 for furnaces, but and it's a lot of people will call me and say, hey, I got this furnace and I'll take it. But my guy that I work with now, he just deals directly with the factory, and he let me be on his account, so I get a brand new furnace for $535. So there's no reason for me to even pay used. And then my guy, I mean, obviously he probably give me a discount because I bring him a lot of volume, but it depends on if all the ductwork is shot, but he typically charged me $1,000. The most I paid was $1,400 installed. So I would just say $1,900 for a brand new furnace. So that has all the warranties and things like that. And like what I do is, first of all, I'm really nice. Everything I go into, I do it with like good in mind. So I'm trying to be business. You have to be business, and I know I got to take care of my kids, but I try to help as many people out as possible. So. And a lot of guys see that, and then a lot of guys respect the fact that I'm a single Black female, so they try to help me a lot. And I mean, even $1,000, that's expensive, but that's a good price. And then also I bring them volume all year because on my properties, and then also I manage for other people. So I feel like that's a good thing by me being in the city so long. The relationships that I build, even though there are comparative prices where everybody's happy, they're still lower than what they would probably just charge someone who's a one-timer.
So
Yeah.
what's very interesting about your story is when you moved into your first home, which set you on the trajectory to just do amazing things, even that was a live like no one else experience because you moved into a house where the painting wasn't perfect. You moved into a house where the furnace wasn't perfect. You moved into the house where maybe there are some other things that weren't perfect. And a lot of people won't do that. They'll say, you know what? I'm going to just go rent this perfect place because I need a furnace. And if I don't got a furnace, then I can't live there. Oh, I need 2 bathrooms. If I don't got 2 bathrooms, I can't live there. And then 5 years later, they're still doing the same thing. They have not moved forward because they just don't want to sacrifice anything for that moment.
Yeah, definitely. And honestly, I love those people. Keep doing that. No, I'm just joking. I mean, keep doing that because and I love my tenants and I give back. But for example, this one lady, she's been in my house for 8 years now. And when I did the math on it, it was like, it's $800 a month. Like, do the math on it. That's over $50,000. I only paid $10,000 for the house. So I'm like, but she's a nerd, and she makes $30 an hour, and I'm like, why wouldn't you just, buy a house? But I'm happy you didn't do that. So on Christmas, I'm gonna make sure I give you and your twins a gift card. She's my best tenant, but some people just don't. And like I said, I want to educate people that they can do it. But at the same time, I'm grateful that people still do it, because that's what keeps me in business, honestly, and it's lack of education as well. To me, not, school smarts, it's just financial education. People may not see okay, so sorry about that. The biggest thing to me, what stops people from buying homes, is the down payment situation. To me, that's what I feel like. So I know there's down payment assistance, but if your credit isn't good and stuff like that. So for example, if you want to move into my house, you'll pay 1 month's rent and security deposit. So it's about $1,400. To buy $100,000 house, you still may have to put that 20% down, which is like 20,000. So they're just looking at the big number. Like, it's 20,000. I'll never be able to do it. Instead of just trying to live a year doing the bare minimum, and just to save that 20,000, you'll be saving for the rest of your life. They just cannot commit to the big payment up front. And that's just that's the only thing I feel like is stopping people. And like I said, I'm grateful for that as well, because I need renters in my houses. Yeah.
So how many homes do you have now?
Dun, 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 dun. No, I'm just joking. I have 13 now. So when I did the podcast, I had, I think 9 properties, 10 doors. Now I have 12 properties, 13 doors. So I did 2 really, really big deals that I was working on right in the middle of the podcast. And so I was able to get those done, and I'm pretty excited about those. And that's where I'm at right now.
Can we talk about those deals since we're there now? Because you've done some really cool stuff. I saw you did one deal where you bought like a multifamily property and then immediately refinanced out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So can you talk about that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So that one, I wasn't even including that one, because I had already, when I did the podcast, I had already did that. I was just in the process of refinancing. But yeah, so basically I went into that deal. I had never worked in the area. I kind of felt like it was the hood, but I went into it with a good heart. So this being in Crossing with this lady, she was an older lady. She was in there, and she was like really sad because the tenants would not pay her rent, and she didn't know about how to evict them and things like that. So I said, listen, I'm a property manager. I'm going to do it for free. I'll come over there. I'll give you recommendations. Once the house is, I'll help you evict the tenants, and then I'll select the tenants for you. And normally I charge for this, but I'll do it for free. So I walked the property with her, and I'm like, their house hadn't been updated in at least 15 years. And I'm like, Miss Smith, we'll call her Miss Smith for references. I was like, I would definitely do this for you, but you're going to have to invest about $7,000 or $8,000 to just clean it up, do something. She was like, oh no, the new tenant, they got to paint all this stuff. So she didn't want to do any work. I said, well, it's going to be really hard. I'll try my best, but I can try to sell it to some of my investors. How much do you want for it? And she was like, oh, I want 19,000. I was like, okay, cool. So I pitched it to a couple investors that were trying to lowball her, and then just dealing with her daily, I just told her, hey, I really would take it off your hands. I don't really have experience with this area, but I'll take it off your hands. But all I got is 14,000. I would love to give you more, but this is all I got. So I'll keep working with you and see how it goes. And then one day she just called me like, hey, Ashley, if you got the 14,000, just give it to me. I was like, I'll close in 10 days, no inspection, anything like that. And we did the deal. Wow. So after I did the deal, I put about 10,000 in each unit. The roof was leaking really, really bad, to be honest. And I just rented the bottom unit first, and then like the next month rented the top unit, and then I tarped the roof because I just didn't have the money at the time. But yeah, during that time period, that's when I opened up my Chase card. And then like a month after that, they sent me a credit card with $16,000 limit. So that's how I was able to do the roof. But it was like a good 4 or 5 months of them living there with the tarp on the roof, and before I can do the roof. So after that, and I was collecting rent as well. I was renting each unit out for $600. So I was collecting $1,200 a month. And that property makes $14,000 a year, ironically, and that's what I paid for it. But so yep, after that, I ended up investing the $10,000 in renovation, about $13,000 on a new roof, and then with the purchase price, so I was all into it for about $3,600. And it took about 6 months or so to do that. So I was collecting $1,200 a month in rent, so I was getting that money back. And then I refinanced the property at a price for $50,000.
Wow.
And it's a vacant a family. It's a vacant 2-family flat directly next door to it, which is an eyesore. I paid some people to board it up, so I thought that it wasn't going to praise for much. But actually, the city had contacted me and they offered me to purchase the property next door for $500. So I'm working with that. The water's disconnected at the street, so I'm dealing with that. But I'm going to buy it. But that was an advantage. Like when I went into the situation just truly out to help somebody, and I didn't have a lot of experience in that area, but it turned out to be a home run, honestly. And I'm so excited and happy
Yeah.
that I did it.
I feel like
Yeah. I'm sorry, that was a lot.
no, this is like a master class on how to invest in Detroit.
Yeah.
So much value there.
Yeah.
I mean, you bought the house and then you put somebody in the first unit instead of trying to like do the whole house. And I always tell people, like, if we're buying a triplex, I don't have to revitalize all 3 units.
Mm-mm.
But then it's like at that point you can start using that one tenant to pay for the other stuff
Yeah.
or to pay
Definitely.
for the roof.
Mm-hmm. And then the funny thing about that house is the day after I closed, somebody broke in there and stole all the plumbing out and the furnace in our water tank. So at
Wow.
first I was only going to spend about $7,000 in a rehab. But yeah, so that's why my goal was just get the first unit rented out. So the next day I had guys there every day, my construction crew working every day. We put plastic pipes in there so nobody's really going to take those. And
Sure.
our goal was just to get the first unit rented out. Once the first unit rented out, the security deposit, first month rent, the rents, we use that money as well to do that, to do the
Mm-hmm.
second unit. And I really commend my tenants because they did have to live in the house for like 4 months with the roof tarped, but they never complained at all. And the rent
Yeah.
is only $600, and they know I'm really nice and stuff like that. Maybe that's why, but they didn't complain at all. But now everything is new from the top to the bottom of that house.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, it's really
Amazing.
good.
The other thing that I take from that is you boarded up a property that wasn't yours, but had an impact on your property.
Yeah, absolutely. And we cut the grass. My neighbors do. Like, I want to be able to live there as well. Like, I mean, obviously, and then that's a big takeaway. So obviously, as human beings, if we're investing in real estate, we're making 100,000 plus a year. You probably can't see yourself living in that house, but you can't think about it that way. So you have to think about it as if I only can afford $600 a month. Okay, I have 2 kids. Would I feel safe and comfortable with my kids living here? In every one of my houses, I can answer yes to that. But if I thought about it, well, you own 13 houses and you make, such and such and such, then I probably would say, well, no, I wouldn't live there. I would try to provide something better. But when you're looking at your properties, it's only $600 in rent. Somebody's got to stay there. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's somebody for everywhere. So if I only had enough money to be able to afford $600 in rent, would I stay in that building? I absolutely would. But at the same time, I would be leery that the house isn't boarded up and it's vacant. So I went in there and boarded it up, and my landscaper cuts the grass and everything. And we're going to continue to do it. I don't mind because I look at it as that, and just Detroit alone. I love the city. I love my people, but I just love just helping. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like by me doing this, maybe it'll show other people and they can do it as well. But
Right.
the end goal is just providing comfort for my tenants and making sure they're
Right.
safe.
It reminds me of the Jay Morrison line that says, like, we're not just real estate developers, we're also community developers. And so
Yeah.
it's like you have a responsibility to create an entire experience for your tenant, not just within the 4 walls of that building, but it's like, hey, like this home over there needs work, go handle it. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's one thing you can see in Detroit a lot. I mean, we're in the process of rehabbing a house right now, and next door to it is a vacant house, and across the way from there is like a house that we could probably board up. And so you inspire me to now just say, hey, like go board up that house too, man, because it makes a difference. It
Yeah.
definitely makes a difference when you have a house where like all the windows are out and all the doors are out. If you board it up, it looks way different than when it doesn't, and when it's not
Yeah,
boarded
and
up.
cut the grass. And also, how would you feel if if they found a body or something in that, you know what I'm saying, the building? Because that happens all over the world. But I would feel terrible if a crime was committed, or even if somebody hid in that building to rob my tenant. And then also, I have a number. I'll have to find it. I'll shoot it to you. The city provides the plywood for free. So I didn't know that. Yeah, I didn't know that we paid for it. But my neighbor was like, hey, if you would have called such and such down at the city, they'll give you the plywood. You just got to put it up. So imagine
Wow.
how many people like homeowners like yourself, they're giving you the boards for free. They just can't get out there, to do it. So if you call these, they'll give you the wood for free. Detroit has so many programs right now that was not present before. that's geared toward bringing these neighborhoods back, and that's why the market is going to be, it's already going crazy, and it's going to be crazier like the next month, the next year.
It is.
Every day I look at the market, I'm like, oh my God, they got that for that house. You know, it's crazy. It's going up every single day. And by me putting my podcast out there, and I was just telling my truth in the story, but honestly, it's really hard to find those deals for 10 and 15,000 now. You know, it really is. So it's not everybody's calling me like, hey, Ashley, I got 5,000 just like you, or I got 10. Could you find me? Or I got 20,000. I need 5 houses. And I'm like, listen, I'm never gonna say never, but it's hard now in the city. Like things are going up. So it's still, you're still getting great cash flow, but it's not as cheap as it was back then.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Which is bringing the values up.
But the cool thing is, I told Aisha Selden that would happen maybe like 2 years ago. I told her, I was like, if you look in all these areas like California, New York, Florida, DC, Colorado, San Francisco, Austin, Texas, there's no more money to be made there. Yeah. And so people have to move their money to places where there's money to be made.
Yeah.
And that's going to be in the Midwest right now, or in Atlanta. So I love Detroit, and I love what it's done for us. And that's why we got to just continue to buy more.
Yeah, definitely.
What would you say was your biggest hurdle towards getting started?
No, not having the knowledge and the money. That was just it. I feel like I said, nobody would give me a loan just because I was taught as a kid, pay everything in cash. If you can't buy it in cash, you don't need it. Credit is the enemy. Banks, don't put your money in banks. You know, it's really funny because I work at a bank now, but that's what I was told, you know. So I always thought credit was the enemy. So I didn't have great credit. I never even had credit because I just wanted to pay for everything with cash. So just not having the knowledge about it, and then not having the credit, so I couldn't get funding for it. So I had to save up on my own. So that was the biggest hurdle. But like I was saying, because I didn't make much, I was only making $20,000 a year. I got a good tax return at the end of the year. I had 2 kids, a single mom. So I was getting about $5,000 to $6,000 a year in tax returns. And everybody was buying new cars and new furniture, and had the best looking hair and extensions and the best outfits and traveling to New York. And I was just like, dang, I can't do that. I want to take that money and spend it on a house. So that was the biggest hurdle. Like it was just the funding, the finances. So if you could eliminate the finances, then I think it would have been anything. I would have been started.
I love that part about your story because you talk about using your tax refund to buy homes. And then even after you bought more homes, you still continue to use your tax return to buy homes, your refund. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so the refunds stopped about year 3, and they slowly went down because once you add the income, absolutely. But yeah, so that as a Black female, single mother, that's the only time that I was able to get a lump sum of money. You know, my checks weren't much. So, I mean, that's the only time a lot of people get a lump sum of money. I mean, unless you sue somebody or anything like that. So it's easier when you have a lump sum of money to sit there and plan it out versus, well, let me save $800 a month and then wait for a year. I mean, obviously it can be done, but when you got a lump sum of money, it's like, hey, let's figure out something to do with it. So that's what I was able to do. And like I said, by doing that, I still was able to get my tax returns every year, even though they went down slowly but surely. But that was just where I knew I was going to get a bulk of money, and then I'll just save monthly to add to it and just buy another property. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a little slower because it's every year, you know, but that's how I started off for the first 4 years. It was I only bought 1 property a year.
Wow, yeah. I like it.
Yeah, it was really good though. Thank you. Thank you, Uncle Sam. Now I pay, and every time I have to pay taxes this year, I swear I don't even mind. I don't even mind. I just write them the check and smile like, oh my gosh, if it wasn't for you, I would not even have to pay taxes. But thank you for, giving me that refund in the beginning. So I don't have any problems paying my taxes. Yeah, even though honestly, I do say, I'm sorry to cut you off. I save a lot in taxes now. So last year, my business has grown so much in the last couple of years. So the year, not 2018, so 2017, I hired a CPA to do my tax return because I'm like, this is out of hand. I just want to make sure everything is done correctly. And he did my taxes and everything seemed okay. And I had to pay $7,000 to the IRS. This is the biggest I've ever had to pay the IRS. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is getting out of hand. How do I have to pay taxes and all this stuff? I was so upset. So I went ahead and paid the taxes, but I just felt like something wasn't right. You know, I was asking questions, and even though he was a very good guy, very knowledgeable, it just didn't seem correct. So in 2018, I would say when it was almost time to do my tax return, I would say about November, I started researching and literally spent 13 hours in one day reading the tax law. I spent about 2 weeks researching it, but one day I did 13 hours, and I prepare my own taxes now. And I this year only paid $2,500 in taxes, and I own more properties. And it just was me taking the time to read that. But not only did I read the tax law to do my own taxes, I also got certified with the IRS. So now I'm able to prepare taxes as well. I'm like, maybe I should start a tax business, you know, but that, I guess that just speaks a lot to my character. When you're faced with something or when you don't know something, that's necessarily doesn't mean it can't be done. Just take the time. Like, yeah, it took me a long time to read that tax law and a lot of stuff I put on the side. But not only am I saving money in my taxes, I'm actually certified with the IRS to prepare taxes for other people, which could be another stream of income, you know, if real estate doesn't work out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't like the feeling of not knowing. And when I ask a person that I'm paying, a professional person, a question, and they really can't give me a complete answer, like I had to do the research. So yeah, but now, yeah, my taxes are really, real estate provides really good tax benefits. It really does.
Huge benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about the deal that you did with your mom? Because I think that was very creative.
Yeah. So that was my second property. Now, before we get started, like I got one comment like, wow, yeah, she charged her mom 3 times what she paid for it. You know, so that was just a hater, which I didn't let that affect me. But yeah, I wanted, like, my mom has 8 kids. I love my mom. You know, she wasn't able to provide for me all the things that I wanted, but I never felt that. And I wanted to do something for her. But at the same time, I didn't have nothing. I only had the one property I owned. I was building as well. But my mom, she was at the time 50 years old. She had never owned a property. She was renting her whole life. So when my next deal came about, it was like $4,000 for the property. So I went ahead and bought the property, and she was having to move around that same time. And I told her, I said, Mom, I'm going to renovate this property, but it's going to be a couple months. But if you want to move here, you know, you could just pay me the rent that you would be paying anyway for 3 years, and then you'll own the property. You know, and then that's what I was able to do. So I only paid $4,000 for the house. Yes, I know, but that would still be a property 10 years later that I would still own. So I am missing a lot on it, but I was able to let my mom not be a renter anymore after 50 years, you know?
Right.
So
it's like she paid you for 3 years, but that's better than paying somebody forever.
Yeah, she was still, like, now it's been 10 years now. She would have still been renting now because she never would have had the money to put the down payment down. And even though she didn't have $4,000, she had 8 kids. She could have borrowed $500 or $600 from each one of us and did it, but she just didn't have that mentality. So by her seeing me doing it, I think it inspired her as well. And like I said, I'll do anything for my mom. Even now, she knows that that's my right hand man. Any deals that I do, I talk to her about it, but I don't feel bad. Like, I charged her 3 months because at the end of the day, I was still trying to build up to my next property as well.
Right. But still, I think the crazy thing about it is there's so much power when you have like parents and children working together.
Yeah.
Before like a certain age, a lot of times like the relationship is one way, meaning the parents are just feeding the kids. But then at a certain point, the kid starts investing back into the parents and allows the parents to do more. Yeah. And so I don't want people to sleep on like there's a lot of value in just relationships in general. But when we start working together with our parents to do bigger and better things, like it helps us both out. It helps you further your career, but also helps you set your parents up.
Yeah.
I want people to feel as though you have to do it on your own without any parental assistance. And I don't want parents to think that like if they have to get help from their kids, that they're less than a parent.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
It's supposed to be a community, not just levels, I guess. But very cool. I like that story.
Thank you.
What was your most difficult deal?
Oh, to be honest, I'm not trying to sound cocky or anything, but I never really had any really bad deals, honestly. I guess I would just say somebody breaking in, stealing the furnace or something, you know, right before I closed or right after. But it's no obstacles. It's like foolproof. You know, their properties are so low in price. So somebody made, like, one property I bought, someone broke in and stole all the electrical wires out. It probably cost me about $2,000 more, but I still was only invested maybe 19,000 in the whole deal. So, and I'm making $800 a month off of it. So yeah, there hasn't been any obstacles because it's just all been cash. The biggest obstacle was just saving enough cash to do the deal. But a lot of people, like you say, you don't have to, like, you have to start somewhere. It's like once you start putting that energy out in the air, in the world, just things start happening. So sometimes I bought a property and did not plan on renovating it for 5 or 6 months or even till next year until I got my tax return. And then things just sort of fell in place where I got a new line of credit for my house, or, you know, the contractor needed work and they offered me to do a deal where they wouldn't take all the money. So I feel like I've been just going in, just what you go with what you have. So if I only have $4,000 to purchase the property and I don't have the money to renovate it, still do it and just talk to people about it, and just like things open up for you.
Right.
And that's what I was thinking about my latest deal. So this deal, I don't even know, like, I feel like it was just a blessing, honestly, for me to get this deal. I feel like it was just some kind of repayment for the good that I've been putting out and just trying to help many people as possible without really expecting anything in return. But yeah, so the other day, this was like 2 weeks ago, I was looking on my computer, just looking at properties, trying to find properties for other investors. And a property came up on the market that was 3 doors down from one of my other properties. And
that happens.
yeah, it was like $10,000 or whatever. I'm like, yeah, let me do some research on it. Well, the wind was blowing, the power went out, my computer surged, and I just forgot about it. So the whole day went past. I never even thought about the property again. The next day, 11 a.m., I sit on my computer, and it's the last thing I was working on. So it was on my screen, and I had 36 seconds to bid on the property. Like, not even lying, 36 seconds. It was auction.com. I've never even dealt with auction.com, so I didn't even know if it was legit, but I figured it was only $11,500. Somebody outbid me, and I'll have time to slowly but surely do the research and do the due diligence while I'm bidding back and forth with these people. So I hurry up, grab my credit card, make the bid for $11,500, and I got the property in 1 minute. Never walked foot in the property, didn't really know anything about it, but I knew that my other property was a couple doors down. So I feel like those deals does not happen. So this is a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, brick home, 2 houses off 8 Mile. And I was just bidding on a house for $25,000 a couple doors down. But my property rents out for $850 a month, and it appraised for cash out refi at $55,000. So, and this is a couple doors down. I just bought this house for $11,500. So I just kept feeling like it's too good to be true. I'm going to walk in this house and it's going to be like, everything's going to be bad. So, I was like, you can't look into the houses. They have no agents, no lockbox. It's a bank-owned property. It was nobody that has the key. So I went over there thinking, like, let me just try to look through the windows just to see what I got, just to see if I can back out if I need to. And all the doors was locked. So I was getting ready to get in my car and walk away. And I realized, like, by me being an agent, we have a set of HUD keys. Now, these HUD keys I've got back in 2010, so 9 years old. So I'm like, let me just check these HUD keys out. And lo and behold, my HUD key worked. So I'm like, all this time I had the key to the house. Like, I'm like, this is just God blessing me. Like, what? It's too good to be true. Walked through the house. I mean, it's a little messy, but beautiful brick wood floors, fireplace. To be honestly, I can only spend about $5,000 in this house to be renting out for $900 a month. But I want to update some stuff. So I'm guessing about $9,000 to $10,000, but the house is going to rent out for $900 a month. But considering the fact that my appraisal just came in for $55,000 right down the street, I'm going to go right to the bank with that appraisal, and I'm going to pull out. If it appraised for $55,000, even though this house is bigger than mine, so I'm hoping it appraises for $60,000. If it appraises for $60,000 and I can pull out $40,000, that'll be double of what I paid for it. My note still will be like $300 a month, and the tenant is paying $900 a month. And I mean, like, that is just crazy to be all into a deal in 2019 for $21,000, making $900 a month. You know, I just thought that wasn't possible anymore. But like I said, I just feel like it was a blessing to be able to do something like that. And then also take action. I could have said, oh, it's 36 seconds, forget it, you know, whatever. It's too good to be true, or whatever the case may be. Or I never seen this property before. I can go in there and everything will be missing. Like, I don't care. Like, long as the foundation is good and the area is good, I'll buy it, you know, and I don't have to do inspections and all that stuff. And I mean, you should definitely do it. But what was the worst case scenario? I redo the whole house, spend about 20 grand. I'm still making $900 a month in rent. It was a no-brainer. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm really excited. I close that deal tomorrow on my birthday after 2-3 weeks of hard work. So I'm super excited about that.
That's awesome. Very cool. So you spoke on refinancing and appraisals. A lot of times, people think it can be tough to find comps in Detroit. So how are you getting your values, and then who are you working with to get these refinances?
Right. So to be honest with you, I've just gotten to the game of refinance, but I never went into it for the comp aspect. Like I never did the cap rate or did the math on how much ROI it is because it just made sense to me. I can spend 20,000. I know I don't want to, but if I can spend 20,000 and it takes a couple of years to pay it back, that just makes sense because how much, I'm making 10,000 a year on it. So in 2 years, I've gotten all my money back and I'll have it for forever. So when I did the deal, I did not really, that deal in particular, I knew because my other house appraised down the street, but any deal I go to, I don't really like check the ARV. To me, that stuff kind of scares me because you're really depending on somebody else's opinion. And I don't like to base anything on my business on somebody else. As long as I control everything, I'm good because I know I'm not going to let me down. I know I'm not going to get greedy. So as long as I control it, that's fine. So I would hate to do some comps and think that the property is worth 60,000 and it only come in at 40,000 and it can ruin a lot of things. So I never looked at it that way, but just based upon me doing the refinances, I just leave it up to the appraisers. You can do comps in there because there's properties in that area that are selling for $10,000 and there's properties in that area selling for 60,000. So, the goal was always cash flow, so I never really did it for the refinance. But now I'm doing the refinances because I'm trying to get a multifamily. So I've been working with, I found a bank called Lake Michigan Credit Union. So they work in Detroit. They're about 10 miles outside the city. Their minimum appraised value is 14,000. I believe every house in Detroit is going to appraise for at least 14,000. So if you buy a house for $1,000, you put in the work, you're going to at least get a $14,000 appraisal no matter what. Like that's cheap. And Lake Michigan Credit Union is doing it every single day. I did a deal with them. My deal appraised for much more, but that was the biggest obstacle when I started researching it is the value. Most people minimum 50,000. Minimum 25,000. So I knew that any house in Detroit is going to price for 14,000. So worst case scenario, I can take it to these guys. But even though my house appraised for much more, I just want to learn their process and be able to use it to help other people out. And a level 1 bank. So I'm dealing with them now. They're doing, and it was basically upon referral. And the reason I deal with them, the guy that does my stuff, his name is Joe. I'm working with Carrie as well, but he's like a wizard of this real estate thing. So everybody in the office provide loans to real estate agents. But when I call people, they'll turn me down like, oh, you don't make enough, or you got too many properties. You can't do this. Your debt to income is too high. Well, Joe, he understands it. It's been so simple with him. And their minimum is $25,000 appraised value. It'll close in 3 weeks. So level 1 bank and Lake Michigan Credit Union is what I'm using right now for the refinances. Fire. But now that I know the language and the process, I feel like I can get a lot more people to do it. But the deal breaker is the appraisal, what the appraisal come in. But as long as it comes in at 25,000, we're set to go.
So for the appraisal, are you working with the bank to get that done, or are you working with a separate company for that as well?
Yeah, from my experience, all the lenders require it. So I've never hired an appraisal. I have to pay for them, but they hire it, I guess, just to avoid conflict of interest or, right. Misinformation. So they bring the appraiser, they make me write a check and I leave the check blank. And then honestly, they give you back a credit of $252. So they on the closing statement, but yeah, they pick the appraisal just to protect themselves, I guess. I don't know how it works, but I've never hired an appraiser.
Yeah. I'm trying to make sure that I ask more technical questions because people said you should have asked this question. You should have dug in more. So
yeah, and I'm a wealth of information. I don't try to hide anything. We need to invest. African Americans, single women. There's no reason why we cannot invest. If you're not in Detroit, holler at me on the gram. No, I'm just joking. I can say that now, but yeah, I'm willing to help everybody, and it's free information because I want us all to win. If you buy 20 homes in my area, I won't even be mad. It's just going to bring my property values up, and I'll just find another area to go to, because as an
Right.
entrepreneur, I can make money in any location. I'll pretty much buy anything as long as the numbers make sense. So
Right.
I will never limit myself. So I don't mind competition. Like I said, it's really bringing my values up, but just do the work. Don't, I mean, obviously you're fearful, you know, that's the biggest thing. You are fearful because you may be investing thousands of miles away from you, but if it makes sense, it makes sense. You know, if you're into this property for $20,000 and you're making $900 a month, how does that not make sense?
Right.
Obviously, I mean, what's the worst that can happen? Somebody can scam you out of your money, but at least you have the property. Sell it to someone else. If that's the case, I mean, and I'm not saying like this shouldn't be looked upon, like that's a big situation. And I don't really hear about a lot of people scamming, but look at the worst that can happen. You're still going to get a good property. And you cannot say, well, they sold me a property in a war zone. You should have went on Google Maps and did the street view. I mean, that's, you know, so like, there's no reason why you should not invest. People call me and they ask me all these questions, and I'm like, listen, I understand everybody has this different strategies, but just think about it. But the biggest thing is letting your money go. As African American people, as people in general, we have a hard time of just letting your money go. So tomorrow, I was just telling Jay Smith, I really like him. He's a really good guy here. I would just tell him, like, I got a check for $60,000. I was supposed to get it last week, but the closing is pushed to tomorrow, my birthday. So I'm closing 2 deals tomorrow.
That's cool.
Yeah, my refinance on my big property in I think it's Bagley. I never even pay attention to the areas, but it's a really good area in Detroit. The neighborhoods, I look at zip codes, but a really good deal where I got almost $100,000 in equity, and I'll talk about that. But anyway, I close it tomorrow, so I'm due to get a check for between 50 and 60,000. And I'm like, man, I don't want this money. He like, what? I'm like, no, I'm trying to figure out, because I'm trying to find a property to buy. I don't want to see $60,000 sitting in my account. That's bad for me. What I'm gonna do? Visit it every day? Hey, you look so nice, and ooh, you know, no, let that money go. I want to keep $3,000. That's it. But every dime that I get out of that check, I'm reinvesting it as quick as possible. I do not want to sit there and look at money, because why? It's not doing anything. I want my money to work for me. I do not want to work for my money. So it was just funny, because how he kind of, like, I guess because how I said it, he was just really blown away. Like, hold on, what you mean you don't want it? I'll take it. I'm like, no, I want it, but I don't want just cash. I want to get that money back out, because obviously I did a cash out refi. So now I have a mortgage to pay. So now I want to buy at least 1 or 2 houses that's going to pay that mortgage off. You know, I don't want to sit there and look at money.
That's a bar. That is so dope. It's dope because it's like, I never thought about it that way. I never thought about it as like, because a lot of times you think cash out refi, you think, okay, the property that I refied has to pay off that debt. Not, let me take the cash from the cash out refi, put that into more property, and then accelerate that debt pay down.
Yeah. So I got 3 properties that's going to pay for that one, the property that I did the cash out refi, and 2 more properties. Because to be honest,
That's so dope.
Thank you. So basically, like, I couldn't really depend on a lot of people growing up, and we just really can't depend on people. You'll be blessed to have people in your life that'll help you out. But my focus, I think I'm going to write a book. No, nobody take my title, please. But my goal is always risk-free. Hold on, let me figure it out. Yes, safe, risk-free investments. I forgot the name of it. I'm sorry. But it's got to be risk-free, and it got to make sense. You know, that's my whole thing. So I have to make sure that I have 3 or 4 exit strategies in place. So obviously, if I'm paying a mortgage now, I can't just rely on that one property. And what am I going to do with the money? It's going to just disappear. So make sure you buy another investment or something that's taking care of the payment as well.
Right. That's fire.
But yeah, it got to be risk-free investing.
Can we talk about the deal that you just mentioned in Bagley?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, it was a referral. So being a property manager, I get a lot of landlords or things like that. So another property manager, I guess, was screwing this guy around really bad. So I just went into it with a good situation, trying to get the property turned around for him and get a good, nice paying tenant in there. And in the process, he had been screwed around so bad, he just wanted to get rid of the house. It needed about $10,000 or $20,000 worth of work. He didn't want to invest anymore. So he let me, and I got really creative with this deal, but he let me buy the property for $60,000. Now, when we did the when we first initially started working on the property, it was beginning of March. It appraised for like, we knew it was going to sell for like $90,000 to $99,000. You know, that's what we thought. So it was like $20,000 for rehab. So he wasn't giving me a good deal. You know, I was expected to make $10,000 on it. So that was cool. So we went through the process. I had to go through a hard money lender. This is my first time dealing with a hard money lender. I went through two. The first one fell through, but it was Kogo. Kogo is who I finished with, for anybody who want to know, the hard money lender. But yeah, so that was in March. So we went through all the process. We got everything done. In the middle of April, we went through the hard money lender, and we got the appraisal, and it came back at 138. So the contract was already locked down. He couldn't back out. We had already did our appraisal just a month before, and it, you know, was only 99,000. So it was at 138. But that hard money lender, their minimum for Detroit was $150,000, the ARV. So as this time going through, I'm putting work into the house because I don't want to sit vacant. Even though I had the contract, the seller could have backed out. He was overseas, so I knew he kind of wouldn't. I had a mock-up agreement behind like a promissory note, but I started investing. I ended up investing like $18,000 into the house, even though I had not closed on the property while we're doing this. So I really had a lot to lose, but I would have just had the land contracted or whatever. So the first deal did not go through. So by me already having a package and everything for the hard money lender, I sent it over to another hard money lender, which was Kogo Capital, and all we were waiting on was the appraisal. 2 weeks later, same house, everything's still the same. The appraisal came back at 155. So in a matter of 2 months, my appraisal went from 99,000 to 155. And I didn't even know why. It's just the area is just appreciating so good. But come to find out, there's a $8 million revitalization up the street that I didn't even know about. It's opening up this month, so that's exciting. But that's probably what was driving the force. But it was just every month or every time I got another appraisal, the value was just coming up so high. So I had the deal for $60,000. We went ahead and closed that with Kogo Capital. It appraised at 155. So I had to bring $6,000 to the. That's the 10% of the 60,000, but I ended up bringing like almost 16,000 to the table. So that's just lets you know, dealing with hard money, how expensive it is. You said, what was it?
Right. So when they, what were the terms? So it was 10% of the purchase price, or how did that work?
Yeah, so 10% of the purchase price, 12 months interest only payments. So I didn't really look at, and it was a 12% interest rate. So hard money is expensive, guys. This is my first time, so I really don't know a lot, but I really didn't care because the numbers were so good. But I knew I had to bring down 10% of the 60,000, which was 6,000. They were charging me 12% interest, and it was 12 months interest only payments. So the loan was 54,000 because I paid 6,000. So the payments are $540 a month, right? And then it's 12 months, and then after 12 months, I still owe them the 54,000 because it's 12 months, it's only interest only. So the 540 that I'm giving them every month is only interest. So that's how that deal went through. But somehow when we got to the closing table, I ended up bringing 15,900 and something, so almost 16,000. So somehow I got fees and everything, but also property taxes, and so it was almost $10,000 in closing costs. So that was a lot. But so I did the deal. We closed on that deal the end of July. So here it is, August 12th. 2 weeks later, I'm about to pull out $60,000 from that same deal. So the Kogo, there's no seasoning. So we already got the appraisal at 155 at the end of July. They wrote, I had to do some kind of thing. I paid an extra $100 to appraisal. He reevaluated. We're still at 155. So now we're closing, and out of the 155, we're taking out $112,000, $102,000. Now I'm in the 30-year term, so my rate is lower. I don't even have to worry about the 12 months interest free. I think it's like a 7%, which is still high, but everything is lower, and I'm about to get back $60,000. You know, for a deal that I would not have been able to do, you know, on my own, for a deal that I had $15,000 in closing costs, and I still have a lot of equity in the property, at least like $50,000 in equity. So that's good. So it's just free money basically. And I'm so blown away by the
created
Yeah, I got down and dirty with it. Like I said, I really wanted to do it to inspire people and be able to help people out with it, because I never thought that I would be dealing with hard money, and I just always was scared of it. I know it's expensive, but if I look at it like, okay, now like I was able to pull out $60,000 from this property and it's renting out for $1,400 a month, mind you, because even before we closed on the deal, I had already did the renovations, and that's why that ARV was up so high. So I had a tenant in there like 2 weeks before we closed, because I had a mock-up land contract agreement with the seller just in case it didn't go through, that he was going to let me land contract it, and I would have refinanced a couple of my other houses to pay him back.
That's genius.
So I'm already renting it out for $1,400 a month, and I bet you the value has increased again. But I don't care. I'm getting the cash, and I'm about to make it work for me. And obviously, when I talked to Brandon Turner came to Detroit, I was really nervous, like when I got my first mortgage statement, because I've been doing this all cash my whole life. And I'm like, Brandon, how am I going to pay this $540? He's like, Ashely, don't look at it like that. It's not debt. You know, you have a mortgage. Yes, it may be fearful, but you are making, 3 times that in rent. You don't look at it like that. Use that to build wealth. How many houses are you going to be able to buy cash? You're not going to be able to keep doing it with cash. Use that to build your portfolio. So yeah, that's really good. So I'm super excited tomorrow. Like I said, and then it just so happened it's my birthday. So I'm closing on 2 deals tomorrow. And I'm just trying to find something to invest in right now with the cash.
It's interesting because it's kind of like a common theme on this show. People do great things, and I always ask them like, well, what are you going to do to celebrate? And they're like, I'm not really going to celebrate. I'm just getting back to work.
Yeah, I'm not doing anything for my birthday. My niece is turning 21 on August 28th. We're going down to Vegas there, but I don't want to do anything. I mean, I don't have, every day is my birthday, and I'm not even cocky. I swear I'm the most humblest person, but every day I get to, like, deals by the grace of God are falling in my lap. I'm helping people out. I'm doing things for people. I still don't live, very lavish. I just got an iPhone. I think it's an iPhone 6 or 7, but don't laugh at me. I cannot stand it. Like, every dime I get is going into real estate. I swear I'm not going to buy myself any new purse or anything. It's just because every day is my birthday, because I'm financially free. Luckily, I'm able to help people, and I get to see my kids every day, my nieces. And that's all that's really important to me. I can drop at a dime. I can go anywhere I want if I wanted to, but I'm not. I'm just keeping it low key and just keep building, because every day I go to work, and I still work part-time. Yeah, right now. So every day I go to work, I'm like, I'm doing this for Brian. And even though I don't know anybody named Brian, that's my imaginary grandkid's name. So my kids are set right now because they've already they've been doing a process with me, but I have imaginary grandkids. So every time I feel like I cannot do this, like my tooth was hurting, I did not want to go to work. Oh, you're doing it for Brian and Perry. I just have all these imaginary grandkids that I'm working for right now. So that's just the motivation. And then I saw, like, Damon John. I didn't even realize he was a waiter at Red Lobster. And even though I think he said 5 years after he started FUBU, he was still working. And that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to create multiple streams of income. Like, I'm the lowest person I work at a bank. I'm the lowest person on the totem pole. I'm a part-time teller. And I mean, it's great. It's saving me money on insurance and stuff like that. I got 401k, all type of stuff, but I still go to work, and then people don't know until some tenants come in the bank, and I'm like, oh, I can't take care of them. They're my customers. And they're like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, I own their property. And they're like, are you serious? Why do you come to work? That's the biggest thing. Why wouldn't I come to work? I'm 33. I'm 32. I'll be 33 tomorrow. I can work. Why not? And then I retired, honestly. I retired at 27 years old. I think I had owned 6 properties free and clear, plus my primary residence. I was cash flowing way more than I was spending, and life was good. 3 years straight, I was with my kids every day. And honestly, I would go out of town, and they wouldn't even call me, my kids. I'm like, hey, y'all don't miss me. And it's not that they didn't love me. They were used to having me there every single day. Like, they when seeing me gone, it was just like I was still there. So I'm like, you guys need to start missing me more. They were getting older. They're doing things on their own. I'm starting to feel like a third wheel to my kids. So that's when I said, let me go back to the workforce. Let me go ahead and get the health insurance benefits. Let me just do something else, to make another stream of income and just kind of get out the house a little bit. So that's when I started back working after 3 years of retired at 27. I started back working, and it's really been great.
Awesome.
Great.
Dope. Very
So I think,
cool.
I think I'll still be working. I don't know. Well, the real reason I decided to work at the bank because it's in a lot of states. I think they're in 48 states. So I always feel like I'm going to move out of state. So even though I have
Yeah.
all this income in real estate, I still want to have a job that's transferable, but so that's the real reason why I picked that bank, because I figured if I move to Vegas or Florida, I can just work at that bank, get my real estate license in that state, and then slowly but surely build, but I'll still have my businesses here. So that's really why I did it. But every day I just go to work for Brian and my imaginary grandkids, I swear, because it's a struggle, knowing that you're building your portfolio and you're making a lot of cash and stuff like that, and you're still working for really not a lot not a lot of what you would make. So
Mm,
yeah, it's
yeah.
humbling, I would say, for sure, but I do it every day. I
Good.
just go in there. I'm not stopping until I reach my goals. Yeah.
It's interesting because it speaks to what people can do. A lot of people think that if they have a job, they can't build wealth, or and so they kind of trap themselves and they never start. They never do anything because they're just like, oh well, if I was financially free, if I had all this free time, then I could do some stuff. And then you get all this financially free time, you're like, I'm kind of bored. Like
Right,
I
you're
don't
bored.
just
Honestly, yes. I was just dying for somebody to invite me somewhere. Like, yeah, I'm available. I can go. Like, whatever you guys need. And then, like I said, my kids, I feel like they started to not appreciate me so much because I was just there every day. And I mean, but I'm still there. I'm only part time, so I'm still in everything they do. I'm still there, and I make sure the job allows flexibility, so I'm still involved.
awesome. So I'm gonna wrap up. I'm gonna ask you a few quick questions. It's not like a fire round type stuff, but it'll just be like a few quick questions. So this question I think a lot of people want to know. I want to know. It's like it's so funny. I was listening to this week of the Bigger Pockets podcast, and some guy was like, "Man, I started listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast when you guys are in double digits, and I knew I wanted to be on this show." And you said the same thing. So how did you get on the podcast? What did you do to get onto the podcast?
Right. So I've been listening to the podcast for so long, and I always wanted to get on the show, but I just never felt that I qualified or that I had accomplished a lot, just because when you hear the podcast, you just hear people, oh, I got 100 doors by 30, or my parents gave me $100,000 loan, or I took out a 401k. So I just feel like I could never qualify, but I was basically commenting in the
Mm-hmm.
forums. So writing on forums, commenting, and just like you said, you saw some things that I wrote on there. Ryan Murdoch, so Brandon Turner left him, and he just personal DM me like, Ashley, you have a great story. I think you should apply to be on the show. And I'm like, really? No, that's not me. And then like 2 hours later, Mindy Jensen, she DM'd me like, tell me about your story. You have a great story. We need more women like you. Tell me about your story. So I told her about the story. So I never applied to be on the show. And
Mm-hmm.
I swear I'm not copying. I'm very humble, but they approached me. So I didn't have to do anything. All I had to do was just I DM'd Mindy, a little outline of my story. And that was pretty much it. They sent me, and it happened so quickly. So I thought it was too good to be true, like always. I just feel like this is a joke, or maybe this is one of their new podcasts they're going through. Like even the day of the interview, I'm sitting right here at my computer, like they're not gonna call. And then they were like 5 minutes later, I'm like, see, I knew it. They're not gonna call. And then they called, but that's pretty much it. I was just commenting on the forums, and luckily someone scouted me out and saw what I was putting out there, and they reached out, and that's how I got the podcast. But I know you can apply to be on the podcast as well.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to do that situation.
How have things changed for you since you were on the show?
Right. So they've changed dramatically, but then again, not really. So obviously, like I've always had this, I feel like it's the law of attraction, obviously. So now that I put it out there, because like I said before, I was just low key. I'm doing this stuff every day. All people in my family know. Nobody never asks me any questions. They just ask to borrow money, but they don't ask me to show them how to make the money. But that's another story. But I've always been low keys. I've never had an Instagram really or anything like that. So that's how things changed. Me putting it out there, letting people know, meeting more people, going there to meetups. I met Jay Morrison, Brandon Turner. But now, because I am a property manager, but I didn't sign up to be a property manager. It just was a necessity because that's where my business was going, and it didn't make sense. It made sense to make another stream of income off of it. So now I'm having hundreds of people reach out to me, and I'm responding to as many people as possible. But that's changed because now I'm able to grow my property management business, hire a person or two, because I'm basically working with about 10 or 15 investors personally, helping them find properties in the city. I got a guy, we're doing 10 deals this month for sure. We already got 2 we're closing on. Yeah, so, but you got to be serious. I sat there and took 3 or 4 days in my life, and every week I try to sit there and just let anybody who called just call and talk to me. And I talk to a lot of great people, but some people just want to talk to me because I'm on Bigger Pockets. Like, they don't use that time to get valuable information. And some people, I give them like really good information. I'm like, dang, I'm really good at this. And like, they still like, okay, well, I'll talk to my husband. I'll call you back. So I guess the biggest thing how my life has changed is being noticed. When I go to any meetup, I have a crowd of people that notice me, and I'm like, me? Like, how do you know? And just being able to meet more people. And I feel like the law of attraction, by me being out there, putting things out there, things are coming. So like that deal that I got for $11,000, the hard money loan, all this stuff is just coming to me because I'm putting it out there. So I just feel like the law of attraction is bringing good people and good energy my way after that.
That's dope.
And then also I can call Brandon, I can call David, I can write Ryan anytime I have a question. I just feel like that relationship. And then I also feel like, and I'm sorry, I know it's a lot, that like, because when Brandon, he came to Detroit, he tagged me. So I feel like anybody who wants to do anything in Detroit, like, they're gonna look at me. So that's a benefit. Yeah.
That's dope. That's so cool.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Who is somebody that you look up to and why?
Okay, so I have a ton of people, anybody in business and stuff like that. I guess right now, I mean, for sure, Warren Buffett, I really look up to him a lot. But I'm just like, with Instagram and stuff, I'm just like people like yourself, Jay Morrison, Brandon Turner, obviously, Damon John, people that I didn't really know the extent of their story. It's just so many people, but the biggest, I would say my biggest person would be like Warren Buffett, just like how he's stayed the same, and he's made billions of dollars. Yeah. And like a lot of my quotes I got from him.
I always tell people that Warren Buffett invested in Detroit, but I haven't really been able to pin down the story.
Yeah.
Have you heard that?
I have not. I know that he published a letter to shareholders, and he told people to invest in Detroit. Like he was telling people like that's what I would be doing. I never really researched to see exactly what he's done, but I know on his letter to his shareholders that I don't think it's public. I think you have to be a subscriber. He was telling people, hey, invest in Detroit. This was years ago. If I had money, I would put it in Detroit real estate. So I have heard him saying that directly, but I never researched to see like exactly what he's done.
Nice.
Yeah.
What is your favorite business book?
Okay, so like I said on there, it's I gotta say it's the E-Myth, but that's probably the only book I've read. I'm not a big reader, obviously, but I do keep this in my purse, the Cash Flow Quadrant. So I've started reading this. I love him, Rich Dad Poor Dad. So I'm really finding some good information about this. So it's just really generic, but even though that's the only book I've read, it was so powerful about about being a technician, being a worker in your business and having a business that's working for you. So I learned a lot from that.
I like it. My second to last question is, what does wealth mean to you?
Wealth means financial freedom, being able to spend time with your loved ones, and being able to give back. That's pretty much it. Like I want, like I said, my grandkids to be affected by this and their kids. That's wealth to me, where it doesn't start and end with me, like Jay Morrison for my last name. So I feel like even now my kids are 15 and 13, they're set already. I'm already working on my grandkids and I'm only 33. So at 43, wow. I should have 5 generations of, Hamiltons that I'm working on. And that's what it means to me. Just, it can't stop and end with you. You can always say that Ashely Hamilton, she was great. She really rocked it. She had $50 million. She had 50 properties. She was amazing. And then 50 or 60 years or whatever, when I'm gone, who's going to say that? You know, now my grandkids and their kids can say, well, my grandmother, she was on a podcast back in 2019, and that's why our legacy has lived on. You know, I want foundations, something named after me, and being able to give back.
I love it.
So that's what it means.
Awesome. Great story. Great show.
Thank
A lot of
you. I
gems.
appreciate it. I was so
Where
nervous.
can people, where can they find out more about you? Where can they follow you? Where can they reach out to you?
Yes. So Instagram, people, please and thank you. My contact information is on there. It's Detroit_investor. No fancy anything, just Detroit, DETROIT_investor. INVESTOR. That's where you can follow me, find out any information, contact me. I'll try to get back with you as soon as possible, but I am posting a lot of my progress and everything on there. So that's where you can reach out.
Awesome. So this has been another episode of the Todd Capital Millionaire Podcast. My name is Charles Oglesby. You can find us on Instagram at Todd Investments. You can also find me on Instagram at Todd Millionaire. Join us at all the things we have going on. You can find it on the Linktree, which is really cool about Linktree. You can find it there. But yeah, this is episode number 115. Rashana Scott will be back next week. She's in Miami living her best life. But we had to keep the show rolling and bring valuable content. We missed out last week because I was in Atlanta, so I kind of feel bad about that. I had to make sure I got something for you guys this week. But thank you all for tuning in. Please like, share, subscribe, rate, review. All that stuff is helpful. My name is Charles Oglesby, also known as Todd Millionaire, signing off. Awesome.